Cali X Boxing 2.0, the sequel here on YouTube. Appreciate all the new subscribers. Appreciate all the archive views I've been getting. Appreciate everybody who's been tuning in live. And as you tune in live, as you click in, make sure to leave a comment. I got some comments already, and I'm going to get to some of those comments at the jump. We're supposed to be joined by D-Style Boxing. We're supposed to be doing our shows on this channel Tuesdays and Wednesdays, but due to illnesses just tearing through my household left and right, tearing through my household. And last week, illnesses with my kids. This week, every parent knows the back-to-school bugs that go around the household. So due to that, we can't get the times right because I'm not able to. I have to do these shows last minute. That's just how it's been working the past 2 weeks. So D-Style may or may not be joining me in a little while, but the time's been crossed up due to me basically having to do these things last minute, off the fly, not too many notes due to dealing with the kids' sicknesses and having to get on here and knock out these shows last minute. So it is what it is, man. It's what we got to deal with when you have children. And make sure to check me out over on Twitter, Cali X Boxing 2. I'll tell you what. I'll tell you this. It's off the top of my head. You dudes on Twitter, man, y'all are the vitriol over on Twitter. It is not like old Twitter. So for me, as a vet of the old Twitter, 2010, 2012 Twitter, where dudes we were all just getting along, talking some boxing for the most part. Man, you dudes over on Twitter, y'all need to chill out. Just chill out. The sky is blue. The sun is out. Life is good. Just get outside every once in a while. You need to chill out when people disagree with you or they talk about your favorite fighter and it's not always good. It's not always positive. You can't threaten to kill them and to cancel them. Just relax. Relax. It's just boxing. We're just here talking boxing. It's a sport. It's a sport. Relax. Relax. Do some yoga. Chill out. Do whatever you got to do. Find a religion. I don't know what you got to do. Find something, man. Find God. Find something. Chill out. Chill out. It's just boxing. We're just talking about a sport. Shout out my guy. That's Lukey Boxing over there. His outfit, ITR Boxing, man. And I love ITR Boxing. And my advice to everybody is always find content that you like and stick to it. Don't overconsume. Don't overconsume content everywhere. Find the ones you like and stick to them. ITR Boxing is one of my go-tos. Love what Lukey's doing over there. And appreciate his support as well. And word on the Twitter street is he likes to golf. I'm getting fitted for golf clubs on Thursday. So if I ever run into Lukey Boxing on the street, I'm gonna destroy him on the golf course. I hope you're right with PBC announcing Spud this week. Look, it's got to be this week or next week. Spence versus Bud has to be announced this week or next week. It just has to. It has to. They're running out of time for the November date. And this would be the perfect week to start to roll out Bud versus Spence or Spence versus Bud. I got to be watched. I got to be careful because the Spence fans are going to get mad that I'm mentioning Bud before Spence. Bud versus Spence. Spence versus Bud. I don't want y'all to cancel me over on Twitter. Spence versus Bud. I know all the PBC fans are. Spence versus Bud. But Ruiz versus Ortiz is this weekend. This would be the perfect week to roll this fight out. Start to roll the fight out. So that's why I say, man, it should be this week. And if it's not this week, it's got to be next week because they're running out of time to roll this fight out and promote it like a big fight should be promoted. Because they got to do it. They got to sell this fight to the casuals. They got to sell it to the casuals. Hardcore boxing fans, they don't got to sell nothing to us. These two fighters have sold themselves. So they could announce that fight a week in advance and we would still buy it. But for the casuals, for them to reach the casuals that Spence and Crawford haven't reached, they got to sell this fight. They got to sell the fight. And they got to start selling the fight. In order to sell the fight to the casuals, you got to announce the fight. Announce it. Is there alligators in your backyard? Occasionally. Occasionally, I get some alligators in my backyard. Yes. Salute El Cheeto BXN, Chicano Prophet, my boy Chicano Prophet in the building. Always appreciate you coming through. My man, Al Chile in the building. If Canelo doesn't fight Mexicans anymore, he's only going to block them from potentially their biggest payday of their career. Is going to take the fans to put pressure on him. And I'm going to get to that in a minute. Hold that thought. I'm going to get to that in a minute on Canelo and the Mexican comment. Kids are legit germ trolls. My niece and nephew get blown out sick dude. You ain't got to tell me. School year starting every single year. The kids get sick the first couple weeks due to school. Chicano Prophet, Steven 20 B move from Canelo saying he won't fight Mexicans. They sport. Can't move like that. And I agree, but wait, just give me a minute. Mr. Boxing Today, OG salute to him. That's my guy over there. Wish he would start putting out videos again, man. I'm just saying. Put out some videos. Just saying. Be nice. Be nice, man. We miss your content. I certainly miss your content. Heavyweight scene is ramping up. That heavyweight scene is ramping up, man. We need to put up that heavyweight Mr. Boxing Today bat signal and get him to come back to the YTBC. Get him to come back. Start dropping that heavyweight content. That's what we need. I'm telling you. Get back, man. Get back. Canelo got everyone triggered. This is what I'm saying, Chicano Prophet. Like, we're going to get into this in a minute. Before we do, some weird announcements today in boxing. Prograis versus Zepeda, 2.4 million purse bid. Prograis versus Zepeda by Marv Nation Promotions. Now, what do we make of that? What do we make of it? They doubled the bid of PBC. PBC bid 1.2 million and Marv Nation bid 2.4. So when I see an outfit like Marv Nation bid 2.4 for Prograis versus Zepeda, immediately, the first thing I thought of immediately was pay-per-view. Pay-per-view. I think it's going to be a pay-per-view fight on some outfit. I don't know. That's the other question. What American broadcasting is this going to be? Who's going to broadcast this fight? But I think in order to make the numbers work on a $2.4 million purse bid for a fight like Prograis versus Zepeda, I'm thinking pay-per-view, right? Marv Nation, if you watch Thompson Boxing over here on YouTube or on ThompsonBoxing.com, Marv Nation is the outfit that puts on a lot of those fights, and they're great fights. They're great prospect fights, small cards out in California. They're actually doing a card down in Costa Rica on DAZN. DAZN's working with them this weekend, I believe. So Marv Nation is putting on fights consistently, but this is their first big event. And $2.4 million purse bid is a big, big purse bid. So the other one was Lou DiBella beating out Matchroom for Buatsi versus who is it? Buatsi versus Pascal. So that's another purse bid. That was another shocker. So some purse bids that were upset as I bite into this egg roll. And I know y'all want to get into Canelo. I'm going to hit on that. Not triggered, I think, is a cop-out. I would equally think it was corny if Floyd said he's not going to be fighting black fighters. Now, the difference there is it would be more like Floyd saying he's not going to fight American fighters. All right? And I'm going to get to that point in a little while because a lot of stuff flying around. And it all goes back to track record, right? Track record. Do we take these comments at face value or do we not? So I'm going to get to that in a minute. Jake Paul's going to fight Anderson Silva. And the formula for Jake Paul is fight MMA fighters because he tried the thing where he's going to fight a boxer because the boxing fans have been saying, what about Jake Paul? We want to see you fight a real boxer. The issue with that was Hasim Rahman Jr. fight didn't go through because I'm telling you, the economics weren't going to work for that fight. And the casuals just didn't know who Hasim Rahman Jr. was. So the casual market would rather continue to see him fight MMA fighters. So why not Anderson Silva? And to be quite honest, I don't hate it at face value. Just don't tell me that Jake Paul's this great boxer or anything like that. So that's another one. And Bivol versus Zerto is official over there in United Arab Emirates. So Bivol versus Zerto is a big fight. The reason it's a big fight, the reason I love this fight, this is the reason I love Bivol versus Zerto, is if Bivol were to beat Zerto, think about this. If Bivol beats Zerto, and let's say he styles on him. So in the same year, he styles on Canelo and Zerto. Is Bivol the fighter of the year? Is Dimitri Bivol the fighter of the year? You run down the list. Right now, for me, in the Cali X boxing household, Bam Rodriguez is the clear front runner for fighter of the year. That's Bam Rodriguez. Has already fought twice this year. Meaningful fights at 115. Sensor ran Vise to hell. The Boogeyman at 115. Arguably won his last 24 fights. And Bam just runs through him like he's nothing. Like he's nothing. And stops him. And nobody expected that. After moving up 2 weight classes and beating Carlos Cuadras, he's going to fight again this month on the Canelo undercard. And he's going to fight again in a bigger fight, hopefully in December. So Bam so far has meaningful wins, and he's going to beat these dudes on consistency, on activity, much like the Canelo blueprint of 2020, late 2020 into 2021. Beat these dudes with activity. Even if every fight's not a home run, you're still beating these dudes on activity, and you're giving people meaningful fights at the same time. Consistency, activity. That's what Bam Rodriguez has given us. That's why he's the front runner so far. But if Bivol were to style on Canelo and style on Zerto in the same calendar year, you have to put his name on the short list of possible fighters of the year. You look at other fighters on the list, Alexander Usyk. Let's just go through my top 12 pound for pound. Alexander Usyk, he's only going to fight once this year. Fighter of the year is not a part-time award. It's not. It's a full-time award. In order for you to be a full-time fighter, at least in my household, you got to fight at least twice. You have to fight twice. Can't just fight once. You're a part-time fighter if you're fighting once a year. So Alexander Usyk, as great as that win against Anthony Joshua was, consolidating WBO, WBA, IBF, and the Ring Magazine lineal belt, he's still fighting once a year. So you can't be fighter of the year, in my opinion. Now, in a way, he has a shot, right? He's fighting again in December, so if he becomes undisputed, but I don't know if the Butler win would be enough, coming off the Nonito Donaire win, in order to get him over guys like Bam and Bivol. God, brain fart. And then Terrence Crawford, another guy, not active enough. Even if he were to beat Errol Spence Jr., if they fight each other, that's one fight. A single fight. Single fight. Let's say Spence beats Crawford. That's a single fight. Still a part-time fighter. You still can't be fighter of the year. They can be performance of the year. Can be knockout of the year. Those are part-time awards. But fighter of the year is a full-time award. You have to consistently do stuff. Canelo Alvarez at number 4. Let's say Canelo Alvarez, he lost to Bivol. But even if he beats Golovkin and he fights again in December, that's still not enough to overtake Bivol, who beat him, if Bivol were to beat Zerto. Jermell Charlo, classic example. Jermell Charlo puts on a great performance against Brian Castano, becomes undisputed. Great performance at the same time, knocks him out, gets his belts, gets all the belts, has all 4 belts and the ring belt. But when's he fighting again? He's fighting again in January 2023. Part-time fighter in 2022. Unfortunately. And I don't think that's due to Jermell Charlo. That's due to the PBC budget that they couldn't fit. Imagine being the undisputed champion of the world in your division. You're the undisputed champion, lineal champion, in your promotional outfit telling you, or your advisor, Al Heyman, telling you that we can't fit you in the budget for another fight in 2022. The disrespect to not be able to get that guy in the ring again. Because if you ask Jermell Charlo, I'm sure he would tell you, I want to fight again in 2022. But he's not going to be able to because of the budget. So he won't fight Tim Tszyu until 2023. So that takes him out of the sweepstakes as possible fighter of the year. Errol Spence Jr., we just talked about him. Dimitri Bivol, we're talking about him. Beterbiev, not fighting again this year. Shakur Stevenson, that's an interesting one because he beats Oscar Valdez, and I think he'll beat Conceição. So that puts him in the top 5, I would think, for fighters of the year, but I still don't think that gets him to Bam in Bivol territory. Bam Rodriguez at number 10. Chocolatito, a good win against Julio Cesar Martinez. And then if he were to beat Gallo, he will once again be top 5, top 6, top 7 on the list, but that still wouldn't get him up there to Bam and Bivol. And then Devin Haney. That's another interesting one. Does beating Kambosos twice in Australia get him up there? And once again, I don't think it gets him above Bam and above Bivol on Fighter of the Year list. It gets him on the list, but I don't think it gets him up to that top 2. So, I mean, I don't know. Y'all leave comments in the comment section. Does anybody, if Bivol were to beat Zurdo and Bam goes 4-0 this year with 3 meaningful wins, do you see anybody else that you can put above those 2 guys? Is there anybody else? Because I don't think so. I don't think so. Let's get to some comments. Let me see what we got here. That's not a bad fight, and Silva is a big name. If he beats Zurdo, definitely. Errol Spence would deserve it too if he beats Crawford. I just don't think one win can do it for you. I don't think one win can do it for you. Spence fought Ugas. Oh, you're right. You're right. That fight was in April. You're right. So Spence would be in, oh, yeah. Spence beating Ugas and then beating Terrence Crawford. Whew. Yeah. Yeah. That's top 3 for sure, if not number 1. Let's say Spence beats Ugas and Spence beats Crawford. And then we would have an argument at that point for Spence being pound for pound champion. And we would also have an argument for Spence being fighter of the year. Whew. You're right. Good call. That's a good call. It would be difficult to not vote Spence fighter of the year at that point. If they make this fight in November, and excuse me eating my egg roll. Like I said, when the kid's sick, I gotta eat and do these podcasts at the same time. You make a great case, man. I don't know if I can keep Spence off fighter of the year if he beats Ugas and Crawford same year. Even with Bam doing what he's doing, even with Bivol beating Canelo and Zurdo, that's a strong case. But those would definitely be your 3 right there. It's between Bam, Bivol, and Spence if they were to able to win the rest of their fights this year. That's the list. That's the list right there. That's top 3. Maybe Haney. I think Haney would be on that second tier. But that top tier is solid. That top tier, if they pull it off, if they win, if they go undefeated this year and they fight all those fights, it would be Spence, it would be Bivol, and then it would be Bam. But I just don't think it's going to happen. I don't think Spence is going to beat Crawford. Just not going to happen. Not going to happen. At least you guys think he's ducking Zurdo. Not watching 40-year-old Triple G. Richard Torres had crazy knockout this weekend. He did. The guy he was fighting wasn't all that great. Now let's get to Canelo because I know that's what everybody wants to talk about. Canelo mentioned that somebody asked him, and you got to take these things in the full context. Somebody asked him if he would fight Zurdo if Zurdo were to beat Bivol. So Canelo said, he answered, and I'm paraphrasing, I'm not going to fight Zurdo. I don't want to fight Zurdo because he's a Mexican. I don't want to fight another Mexican. And I would fight Bivol. I still want the rematch for Bivol. Fair enough. Now, the general rule is if one fighter is better than the other and you'd rather fight the better fighter, then you're not ducking the fighter that you don't want to fight. We would all say at this point that Bivol is the better fighter than Zurdo. Canelo knows it. I think we all know it. That at this point in time, unless Zurdo pulls off this upset, because he will be a pretty big underdog against Bivol. Actually, I think those odds are out. I think Bivol is a minus 500, minus 550 favorite against Zurdo. So I never call it a duck when a guy is calling out the fighter that's better than the other fighter being asked about. He's being asked about Zurdo, and he's saying, I don't want to fight him because he's a Mexican, but I'd rather fight the guy who has already beaten me and is better, is the odds-on favorite to beat Zurdo. I'd rather fight him in a rematch. So I can't call it a duck in that case. But as far as the actual comment, I don't like it. I didn't like it when Yanibek is out there saying, I can't fight Triple G because he's from Kazakhstan. And Triple G saying a similar thing about Yanibek. I just don't like that they're both from the same country, so we can't fight each other. And it's the same thing here with Canelo. On face value, at face value, on the surface, I don't like this comment. It's the same thing we were saying. You throw out the scenario about Mayweather. Imagine Mayweather saying, I'm not going to fight another American. Throw any country out there. I'm not going to fight this fighter because he's from my country. I don't like it. I don't like it. Like Miguel Cotto saying, I'm not going to fight another Puerto Rican. I'm not going to fight Kermit Cintron because he's another Puerto Rican. I wouldn't like that comment. And I don't like it coming from Canelo. I don't, at face value. But track record. Track record. If Canelo has been giving us everything we want as fans up until this point, to me, this is a one-off. It's a one-off. So I think to myself, is he really being genuine when he says this? And by the way, I want somebody to ask Zurdo, because they're doing a press conference out in the UAE tomorrow. I want somebody to ask Zurdo tomorrow in the media, do you agree with this comment? And will you fight Canelo? Would you be willing to fight Canelo if you beat Bivol? Do you want to fight Canelo if you beat Bivol? And if that question is asked, I'd be interested in hearing what he says. And I think Zurdo would say he'd want the Canelo fight. I would think Zurdo would say, no, I don't care if he's Mexican. I want to fight him. And to me, this comment seems weird from Canelo because it's out of character. He's already fought Chavez Jr., he's fought Alfredo Angulo, and he's fought a whole cast of Mexican characters on his way to his first big fight in America. Not big fight, but his first introduction to America. I believe that was against Cotto's brother back in 2010. So it's not like he hasn't fought Mexicans. And we also have to throw this in the mix. We also have to throw this in the pot. It's not like there's this big list of Mexican fighters in the top 10 in the divisions in and around 168. Zurdo at 175, Munguia at 160. That's it. That's who he has to pick from when we talk about Mexican fighters. And those guys at this point will be way down the list of guys we want to see Canelo fight up until this point. So is this Canelo just being kind of dismissive right now? Because I think if Zurdo was the big threat, I don't think we'd have Canelo talking like this. I think this is Canelo just being kind of dismissive. And I think if Zurdo wins this fight against Bivol and puts the pressure on Canelo, then Canelo's stance will change. This just seems out of character to me. It seems out of character. I don't like the comment. I'm not taking up for Canelo saying it because as a boxing fan, I'm consistent in this. I don't like comments like that. I don't like when Yanibek said it. I'm not liking when Canelo says it. I also didn't like the Klitschko brothers. And D-Style thinks I'm crazy. Beeb thinks I'm crazy saying this. But I didn't like the Klitschko brothers being the top two in the heavyweight division for years and not fighting each other. If the Charlo brothers were in the same division, I wouldn't like them being top two in the division and not fighting each other. I didn't like when Darrell said he wouldn't fight Ward in the Super Six because they're like brothers. Didn't like it. To me, if the boxing gods have collided, you fight each other. So if Zurdo were to beat Bivol, and there's this big demand for Canelo versus Zurdo in 2023, as a result of it, they got to fight each other at that point. But I got D-Style Boxing here. What do you think about Canelo's comments? What do you think about him?
I mean,
you really take it as at face value, or do you think this is kind of like me? Like on the surface, I don't like it, but it just seems out of character, and it seems like a one-off.
Well, he said it before that he doesn't want to fight Mexican fighters.
Did he?
Anymore, anyway, he said. But here's the thing. I don't think that necessarily means he won't fight it's one thing to say I'm not interested in fighting other Mexican fighters, et cetera, et cetera. But I don't know if it means I'll never do it. Like you know what I mean? Like I don't know if it means that necessarily, but I mean, as of right now, though, and by the way, I think he means like Mexican nationals. He's not talking
Yeah,
about like
and let me throw this out there. I'm glad you
sure.
said that because I saw people on Twitter saying, "Oh, this means the Benavidez fight's not gonna happen." Benavidez is born and raised in Phoenix. Canelo views him
Oh,
properly as an American.
oh,
Okay, he lives in Seattle, I believe, right? Benavidez. So,
trains. I think trains out of. I don't know if he lives there, but it
but
could be.
then,
Well, I guess it could mean he lives there. Yeah.
but what I'm saying is that's not who he's talking about here. That's not who he's talking
No,
about.
no, he's not. He's not talking about Benavides. He's actually said the opposite that he would fight Benavides. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I think people are grasping at straws, though. I mean, like the people acting outraged that he won't fight Munguia, like give me a break, okay? Like, oh, he's putting the Munguia possibility that, like, none of you would give him credit for fighting Munguia. I don't know, nobody would get excited about that fight anyway. Though, obviously, I will say this though, that if Zurdo beats Bivol, I mean, you got to do it. Like I'm just saying, you can't like avoid that fight.
Yeah.
You just can't do it. Like, you know what I mean? In my opinion.
What do you think Zurdo would say if they asked him tomorrow about Canelo and whether Zurdo would fight another Mexican fighter? What do you think he would say?
Zurdo would say, "Hey, yo, see, if he wants to fight me, I fight him. If he wants, Viva Mexico." Like that's Zurdo.
I like
Zurdo
Zurdo
fight him.
throwing beers at people too. I love it,
bro. That's like asking a stripper, like, would she mind making $10,000 tonight? Like, or like a server or some shit. Hey, you're gonna get $800 in just tips today. Do you want to do it? Like that's like would you fight Canelo? These fighters would fight Canelo. That's their Super Bowl. That's their chance. That's their moment. That's a legacy fight. Just because it's Canelo. Like Zurdo will, in fact, Lefty will do it, brother. He will.
Yeah, I think so too. And
let's start calling him Lefty.
The thing is, Canelo has built up enough equity with me as a fight fan. He's given me enough of what I want the past couple of years, especially as compared to other fighters, that I sort of have some forgiveness with this stuff. But at the surface, I don't like it. But I just don't believe it. It's not believable to me that he would pass on a Zurdo fight if Zurdo were to beat.
Of course, you're not gonna like it. Like, you wanted Vladimir Vitelli to fight. I mean,
that's what I was just explaining. And I said if the Charlo brothers were both middleweights, I'd want them to fight each other. That's just how I view things. Like, if the boxing gods have you as the two best, you got to fight each other. And if the boxing gods, if Zurdo were to beat Bivol, and you've got Canelo right here at 168, and Zurdo here at 175, and it will be a huge fight. And we know that would be a huge fight at that point. I think you got to do it. And I think Canelo would make a 180 at that point, because I know Zurdo at that point would put pressure on Canelo. And I know Canelo is not the type of guy to back down from a challenge. So I think all that would go by the wayside at that point. It's just not believable to me. It's not believable.
Does anyone have like the word and text by any chance? Is that anywhere? Like the quote?
No, but I did see the actual interview yesterday and today. I watched it a couple of times. So he said it, and he said it in the proper context. But at the same time, he seems sort of dismissive of Zurdo, as he's gonna lose this fight. He reiterated, I want the Bivol rematch. And to me, once again, it's not a duck if you're calling out the fighter who's actually better, right? And Bivol at this point in time is considered better than Zurdo. He's the huge betting favorite coming into this fight. He already beat Canelo, and Canelo is calling him out again for a rematch. So I can't be too critical of that. I just can't. I don't like the comment at face value, but it's not believable to me that if Jaime Munguia, because there's really two fighters in the equation, right? And that's the thing about the upper weight classes, is there's not going to be as many Mexican fighters from 160 up, correct? It's generally lower than that.
Right.
lower weight classes up to 147, 154, whatever it may be, 160. But I just don't. If Jaime Munguia were to move up to 168 and go on a run, do we really think that Canelo would just ignore him and say, no, he's a Mexican national, I'm not going to fight him? I don't believe it.
No,
I don't believe it.
I don't believe it either. To be honest with you, I don't.
No. So I think people are reading too much into it.
But it's also like all the people outraged by this, by the way, are like, I mean, these are not Zurdo and Munguia fans, the ones acting outraged by this. Like, you know,
And by the way,
not.
they're not Canelo fans either, right?
They're not fans of Canelo. Like,
they're guys who've been critical of Canelo in the past, and they're looking
those dudes like inspired the Police song "Every Step You Take." He saw in the future, and they saw like, look at this dude's like watching every step he makes, every move he makes. They're watching. You know what I mean?
With the territory.
Yeah, like, you expect me to believe that Ego like cares about Mexican fighters like Munguia and Zurdo, and they don't give a shit, bro.
Once again, I go off track record and resume. I think Canelo, if presented with that challenge, would take on that challenge no matter where the guy is
Plus,
from.
how often, and again, how often is he gonna, like you said yourself, like, it's one thing like if Gallo Estrada came out right now and said, "Oh, I don't want to fight a fellow Mexican," like right when Bam's like right there, like, you know what I mean? Like, okay, that's one thing, and then there's a bunch like the top 20, like half of them are Mexicans, you know.
It's a different thing talking about lower weight class fighters because there are a lot more Mexican threats.
Yeah, it's like you know, if a Japanese, if Inoue comes out and says, "You know what? I don't want to fight no fellow Japanese fighters anymore," and like you're like half of y'all like are Japanese. Like you can't like. What do you mean you're not gonna do it? Like, you know, like you got to do it. What does that mean? Like.
Right.
All I know now, if he moves up, let's say Inoue makes a move to 122, and it says, "Okay, I'm going to move up in weight class. I'm not going to fight any fellow Japanese anymore." Okay, because now you got Fulton, you got some other players on there. You know what I mean? It's all right. It's all right.
But the thing about it though is this is a discussion that will go by the wayside.
But everything he gets accused of, like, oh, he doesn't fight black fighters, but he fought Mayweather, he fought Trout, he fought Lara, he fought Jacobs when Jacobs was undefeated and was or not undefeated. He had one loss just against Golovkin, a disputed loss, and he was a top dude in the weight class. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he doesn't fight Mexicans. He fought Angulo. Like, he fought his whole career. Like, his first 40 fights were against Mexicans. Like, I mean, this is crazy.
Benavidez isn't. He's a Mexican American. He's American.
I don't think he's talking about Benavidez, brother.
Yeah, he was born in Phoenix. Trains in
People want to make it about Benavidez. Have you noticed that though? Like, they want to make, like, Benavidez has become like the dude people use to hate on Canelo, like, for whatever reason. And it's like they want it to be about Benavidez, right? But when asked directly about Benavidez, Canelo never said he won't fight him. In fact, he said the opposite. I'm just saying. The dudes, like, they're not really out. They don't give a shit about Munguia and Zurdo, bro.
No.
Which is
they're using them as tools to get at Canelo is what's happening. And Canelo has never said he would not fight Benavidez. They're trying to put this on that, is what it is. They're using Zurdo. He was directly asked about Zurdo. And why this will go by the wayside is Zurdo's not going to beat Bivol. He's just not. Okay.
Can I read you a quote from Canelo? This is a direct quote from TV Azteca. This is from last year, in fairness. But this is exactly what he said. This is what he said. "I represent Mexico, and I do not like to fight with Mexicans. I do not see any sense in doing that. Jaime Munguia has potential, but he still has some fights to go before he reaches this level. I am not closing the door to anything, but for now, I would not like to fight other Mexicans." That's what he said last year. But he's saying he won't close the door, bro. And this is when he was asked about, and then he says he represents Mexico. So, like, I get, of course, look, look, it's an identity thing. Look, I'm not going to say that Benavides isn't Mexican. That's not what I want to say, but he's not from Mexico. You know what I mean? Like that's an important distinction. And historically, now whether Canelo's aware of this or not, I don't know. But there has historically there's always been a rivalry with Mexican nationals and Mexican Americans. You know, Tapia fighting, Barrera or whatever.
Chavez versus Oscar.
Yeah, that's another one. So that's all I'm saying. Like it could definitely happen, but the important, you notice how people never finish the quotes. He said, "I'm not closing the door to it." It's not what he wants to do, but he's not saying he won't do it.
Right. And on the surface, I don't like the beginning of his comment yesterday, but what I'm saying is, I'm telling you, Canelo's, first of all, he's playing to the Mexican base. That's number one. Number two is the people throwing out examples of all these other Mexican greats who have other great fights against other Mexican fighters. Canelo didn't come up in these same weight classes. You had the lower weight classes. Guys were battling each other because you had so many Mexican fighters there. You had to fight them. Right. But Canelo does not expect Zurdo to beat Bivol. I'm telling you. I watched the whole comment, and he said, I'm not fighting Mexicans. I'm not going to fight other Mexican fighters. And then he went straight to Bivol after that. He said, I want the rematch with Bivol. He's fully expecting Bivol to beat Zurdo. And rightfully so, because it's likely going to happen. But this whole conversation is going to go by the wayside because I don't see Munguia going on a great run at 160.
Yeah, but can I read the quote? This is why I like quotes. So this is from Boxing Scene. This is the whole quote. If Zurdo wins, because again, we're talking about hypotheticals here, right? If Zurdo wins, I don't want to fight with Mexicans, Alvarez told FightHype.com. I don't want to fight with Mexicans. I think Zurdo has a lot of chance to win, and I want him to win. If he wins, we will see. If I want the rematch with Bivol, I don't know. Everything's based on Bivol here. Like the way I see it is the way you see it. I don't think he thinks he could win. He's saying he has a chance because he doesn't want to like just throw him under the bus either. But he's basically
both sides. He's playing both sides, right? He's playing to the Mexican base. He's saying, "I'm cheering for the Mexican fighter. I don't want beef with any Mexican fighters. I'm cheering for him, but I still want that rematch with Bivol." I just think people are reading on the surface. I don't like the Mexicans not fighting Mexicans, Americans not, Kazakhstan not fighting. I don't like that stuff, but I don't think that's what happened here. I just think people are reading too much into it, and they're using Zurdo and Munguia as a tool to try to get at Canelo, and they're trying to put Benavides in this mix when none of this has anything to do with Benavides. Benavides, Mexican-American, as you mentioned, the Mexico versus Mexican-American rivalries that we've had.
Yeah, but there's a difference between...
been brought up, Canelo has said, I'm willing to fight him.
But there's a difference between I won't fight with Mexicans and I don't want to fight with Mexicans. Those are two different... Those two things mean two different things, right? Now, somebody might say, yeah, but his English is broken, so we don't really know, I guess, what he means. But when someone's like I believe that if he didn't want to fight Mexicans, that would have been made abundantly clear. Like, I do think he would have been like, I'm never going to get in the ring ever again with a Mexican, like ever, whatever. Get the fuck out of here, man. Asking me that question, whatever, right? like, you motherfucker, me no fight with Mexicans. I think he would have made it abundantly clear. But Canelo has always, he's fought probably more Mexicans than anybody else. Look at his record. Was he holding back?
Before
he hold back against Angulo?
And he fought Angulo, and he fought who was it?
And then he fought Golovkin, Mexican style.
Mexican style, right? He fought Angulo, and he fought Chavez Jr. Remember? He fought Chavez Jr.
Bro, he's saying, I don't want to fight with Mexican fighters. Because of course, he's trying to relay the message that hey, we're in Mexico, we're a team. I don't want to eliminate parts of my team. You know what I mean? We're in the same team. But he's saying, I don't want to. But I don't care what anybody says. I don't want to is not the same as I won't. Okay? I'm just saying, I don't want to get up in the morning, Calix, to go to work at fucking 4 a.m. I don't want to do that. It's not a preference of mine. But do I? Yes.
This comment right here, PBC 160, 168 pounders say they don't want to mix it up. They do want to mix it up, but years later they have yet to fight each other even once. Jamal Benavidez, Plant, Morrell Jr. This is why I love Nando. He's always the voice of reason, but it's a great point.
Nando's all right.
But this is a great point. If we're going to be critical of anybody in and around 168, Canelo's not the guy because everything's revolving around him, right? And he's going about his business and he's giving us good fights. He's giving us fights against top fighters. He consolidated all the belts at 168. He's circling back to Golovkin and he wants the Bivol rematch, even though he lost. But while he's doing all this, these guys aren't doing anything. And I hate these conversations because people are going to think I'm just capping for Canelo, but that's not what it is. I didn't roll out of bed and just start being a fan of Canelo. That's not what happened here. And when he's out of pocket, I'll call it out. But the thing is, he's built up so much equity to me the past couple of years from what he's done, what he's given to the sport.
I have to be honest. He's one of the easiest fighters ever to defend.
I mean,
he's just, it's all you got to do is tell the truth. That's it. That's all you got to do. You don't got to bullshit it. You know what I mean? And I think what happens, Calix, is that, like, I don't know, it happens with a lot of people here, man. Like, you and I both know there's some dudes out here that don't like Canelo. Like they just, and there's different types. There's the ones that just flat out say it, and there's those, and then, you know what I mean? Like, there's the ones that, you know, they don't like him, but they don't like, they won't admit it, but we know what's going on. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And that's just something that Canelo deals with, I think, and a lot of narratives and a lot of, let me reword that. A lot of people don't want to just give this guy's just due, especially content creators, because they don't want the backlash of like, oh, you're a Canelo fanboy, right? Mm-hmm. Because if you go down the line, everything good he's done, like, objectively speaking, he's done a lot of great things for the sport, right? And I feel like when you go down the line, maybe some people feel a little overwhelmed with it, like, especially the ones that don't like the guy. There's guys out there that you don't like Canelo. Mm-hmm. You know you don't. And you start hearing positive things about Canelo, and your instinct is to just think, oh, those guys they're fanboying. Oh, they're this or that, right? Well, no. Calix was here when I was doing videos. Calix, what did I say when Canelo got his first title shot? Because Matthew hadn't.
That the catch weight was garbage. It was a garbage fight.
It was a garbage fight. Did they pick?
I just lost you.
There we go. It muted me for some reason. I don't know why, but like, you see what even StreamYard, like, shut the fuck up, Canelo fanboy. Just muted me. You know what I mean? No. But what I'm saying is, like, I've criticized Canelo a lot in the past, and what's funny is like I criticized him about the Khan fight, but I've had nothing to complain about ever since he fought Golovkin. Everything he did forward from there. Mm-hmm. You know, I'll take it a step back, like besides the Khan fight, but I didn't have a problem with the Cotto fight. You know what I mean? He was the lineal champion. Cotto's the guy that beat Martinez. It is what it is. But then guess what? Nobody wanted to fight Golovkin in middleweight. The guy that moved up to that weight class is the guy that fought him. His name is Canelo, and he fought him twice, right? And now he's going to fight him 3 times. It is what it is. But I've had nothing to complain about ever since then. None at all. So
and going after this is just nitpicking. And by the way, guess who had him losing the first Golovkin fight? Me. And I got called a Canelo hater for that, among some other things I said about Canelo in the past. But that's what happens when you call it up the middle, right? You call it straight. You're going to be.
People don't want to give him his flowers, bro.
I've been accused the past week of being a Haney hater, and I've been complimentary of Haney the past couple of months and was called a Haney lover. Like, I can't win. I can't win, and it's the same thing.
Look, when the rumor just last year, when it was rumored, it's rumors that Canelo was going to fight Bivol instead of Plant. Remember that? Mm-hmm. And they were saying they might do it at a catch weight. I publicly went out and said that if this is true, and if Canelo fights him at a catch weight, it would be bullshit. I came out and I said that, right? Like I'm telling you right now that there's people that just refuse to be objective with Canelo. Like they just refuse to do it. They're scared of being objective with him.
It's anything, right? They're scared to be objective about anything, but it's magnified when it comes to Canelo because he is the face of the sport. So it's
Yeah, and you know what? Like,
magnified.
you know, you say you were called a Canelo hater because you had the first Golovkin fight for him, right? I think there's people that have these like ghosts of Christmas past effect. I'm gonna call it the ghosts of Christmas past effect. I'm gonna call it that. I just made that up. But they get these like flashbacks of like the past when they were being attacked by Canelo fans. You know what I mean? And they can't let it go for whatever reason. Like it's time to let it go. You know what I mean? The same with the Pacquiao fans. It's just let it go. Like that, some Pacquiao fans attacked you 10 years ago or whatever. Like who cares? You know what I mean? At this point, like it's old news. Like, you know, like all I know is this. This guy, like the fact that he's gonna fight Gennady Golovkin for the third time, and he's literally getting no praise for. He wasn't even getting praise from it for me. I was saying I hated the fight, right? But then I thought about it. Like people made some really good arguments, and it really hit me when people made the Pacquiao Spence argument. They said, "Tista, you weren't talking like that about when Pacquiao was going to fight Spence. And Pacquiao's older than Golovkin is now. And Pacquiao moved up more, not one weight class. He moved several weight classes throughout his career. And I'm going to tell you right now, people were ready to give Spence all types of credit if he won that fight. And I'm not arguing, by the way, that he shouldn't have gotten it or what. That's not my argument. My argument is then I should give Canelo the credit just like I would to any other fighter is what I'm saying. You know what I mean? Like, he raised, like Canelo didn't raise the bar. He is the bar right now in boxing. He is the bar, like point blank period. Right. So we're like, dude, like people are hypocrites, bro. I saw people give Ugas all types of credit for beating Manny Pacquiao. Right. Should have. He was an underdog in the fight. A lot of people picked against him. Great win. But Pacquiao was 42 years old. Pacquiao hadn't fought in a while. He was inactive. Like Gennady at least is active. He's a unified middleweight champion at least. Like if Ugas is going to get that's Ugas' best win of his career. You know what I mean? But everybody wants to shit on Canelo for this Gennady Golovkin fight.
Yep. And then it's revising history because they don't realize in 2017, whenever the first fight happened, that the narrative out there was nobody wanted to fight Golovkin at middleweight. Cotto didn't want to fight him. And that's why I'm thankful that Canelo beat Cotto all these years later, although I was cheering for Cotto at the time because Cotto would have never fought Golovkin. And we got the lineal champion that we deserved in Canelo, and he fought Golovkin. You fought him twice. And everybody was saying, and people forget, Golovkin was the favorite, I believe, in both fights. And people were saying, he's crazy. He's crazy for fighting Golovkin. He's crazy for fighting Lara. You shouldn't fight that fight. You shouldn't fight Trout. Remember Golden Boy? You shouldn't fight Trout. You shouldn't fight Mayweather this early. He fought the fights, and that's what I'm saying when it comes to track record. He has the track record. So when I see a comment like that, I just don't take it at face value. On the surface, I don't like it, but I just don't take it at face value. It's not believable to me. But Remy's super chat, saludos, my guy, Calix and D-Style. I wouldn't fight a Mexican either. Joking, but Canelo fought like 30 plus Mexicans since his debut, and that's the thing. Like he's fought a lot of Mexicans. And
yeah, he fought a lot of Mexicans. So it's not like he has like this moral compass that makes him not want to fight Mexico. Like you know what I mean? Like he wasn't holding back with those combinations against Angulo or some shit. You know, like it is what it is. But I just think Canelo is a product of where he's at. He's at 168. Like there just isn't like a lot of Mexicans at 168 besides Mexican American and Benavides, bro. That's it. Like, so when people say, "Oh, he's just fighting a bunch of Europeans," Those are the guys. Like, haven't you seen who's dominating 175?
Yeah.
There is Americans campaigning there. They're getting fucked up by Better Beef. Like Brown, he got fucked up. There is, American fighters fighting in those divisions. They're just not good enough to be a champion there, right?
Yeah.
So Canelo not avoiding the weight classes, or whatever. Like he's just, he's got a big frame. He's not 5'4" and weighs 140 pounds or 135 pounds. It is what it is. You know what I mean? And that's where he's at. I'm just saying. You know what I mean? He just doesn't eat that much like Ruiz.
And have a butt tattoo. But let me ask you this question.
Those Ortiz to knock him out for all of us because of the butt tattoo?
Let me ask you this question because I threw it out there earlier. Let's throw out this scenario in which Bam Rodriguez goes 4-0 this year. He fights again this next month. He fights again in December. He goes 4-0. Bivol styles on Zerto much like he styles on Canelo. He goes 2-0. And Spence beats Ugas and Crawford if that fight's made. Let's throw out the scenario. Who would be your fighter of the year out of those three? That's a tough one.
I said Bam.
Bam? Even over Spence?
Yes.
If you were to beat Crawford?
Man. I just don't think he's
I
going
have
to
to
beat
go with
Crawford.
Spence. I got to be honest. And I didn't think there was a scenario in which I'd have somebody over Bam.
It depends, though. Like, who's Bam going to fight?
I don't know who he's fighting in December.
This
next fight's not against great competition. It's decent competition.
Okay, but he's active. But here's the other thing: like if he could, like let's say in December he fights like Gallo Strada, and like fucks him up.
That's not going to happen though, because Gallo's going to fight Chocolatito in December.
No, I'm just giving. But anything could happen. Like, well, what if it wouldn't be the first time Bam fills in? In other words. And let's say Chocolatito, damn, there was an injury in training camp. Oh shit, man! He said he'll fight, and he fights Gallo. Like I'm just saying, like
I think I'd have to go
see
with
what
Bam.
happens.
If it's if it's three fighters in the top 10 at 115, in 4-0, it's hard to go against Bam at that point. Even if Spence were to beat Crawford, but Spence and Crawford, like Ugas and Crawford. The thing is, I just don't see that happening. I don't see Spence beating Crawford. Just don't see it happening.
I don't see it either, but of course, it also matters how they win, and that's a big. Like if Spence wins a controversial decision that everyone thought he lost, and I mean, it's not the same as dominating Crawford and knocking him out. You know what I mean? Like, so it just depends how he wins, obviously. But we'll see. I mean, I think right now the front runner though is Bam.
Yeah. And that's what I think will happen because I don't think Spence is going to beat Crawford if he fights him. If that fight happens.
But Bam he's not undisputed though. Well, because he didn't have a weak ass dude like Cambosos to beat and get the belts from. That's why. That's the truth.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. And the interesting thing today is last week the Haney fans were advising Haney to give up belts because he's bigger than the belts now. But now, since Tank is calling out Haney on Twitter and Tank saying he's the real champion at lightweight, now all of a sudden the belts matter again today. So it's interesting. What did you think about?
I don't know about all that.
By the way, what did you think about Big Baby's performance on Saturday? How high are you on him? Is he the best? Because Tim Bradley's saying he's the best American heavyweight prospect since Riddick Bowe, I believe. Do you agree with that? Do you think he's the best?
Oh, man.
Right? In the 21st century.
But what does that mean, though? Like, he's the best American prospect since Riddick. Like, why stop at Riddick Bowe? Like, what? Like, I mean,
because they're saying it because Deontay Wilder is the only American heavyweight that's really materialized in the 21st century, and he wasn't a great prospect. He was a raw product, right? He won a bronze medal, but he wasn't a great prospect. He was a work in progress. It took them many years to build Deontay Wilder. So I think that's why it is. It's like Seth Mitchell, right? Seth Mitchell stepped up and flamed out. You have countless examples of American heavyweights in the 21st century just flaming out.
I hear that. Look, I mean, I guess you could argue that. I mean, I don't. I don't know about those statements about the biggest, best prospect since Riddick Bowe. I mean, I'm not sure about that one, but I'll have to kind of look at it a little longer. But he's good. I mean, like he's really good. Like you know what I mean? Like I actually want to
He's
see
a
him.
combination puncher for that size.
I
But
do
it's
want to see a big baby versus big baby matchup, just because there's only room for one dude. I wanted to beat the big baby nickname out of Miller. I think they should do it like the loser needs to drop the nickname.
yeah.
It's a fight that they could do. I think it's the perfect matchup actually at the moment for him to step up a little bit. They're moving them great. Look, the talent is there, and shout out to Ohio Runs Boxing, by the way. Okay, it's been touting him for a while, so shout out to him. But I am gonna say that I'm very, very impressed by him for sure.
Yeah. The thing that I like about him,
What about him versus Anthony Joshua like next year?
Good defensive fighter. Really good combination, great combination puncher for his size. He looks to have power. The thing is, you don't know, right? Because everything is early knockout, early knockout, early knockout, early knockout. So we don't know until you're not going to know how a fighter's going to look in the 8th round until he's in the 8th round, right? We just theorize at that point as to what he would look like. So what's he going to look like in round 8? What's he going to look like in round 10? We need to set him up to
like I hate to say it, Calix, but it's almost like now it's a catch-22, right? But like there's two ways to do it. Either you keep the same level of opposition, but you got to kind of carry them to go to later rounds. But a better way to do it is step them up. You know what I mean? Step them up with some durable dudes to start getting used to going rounds, like hard rounds. And I know Big Baby Miller was in horrible shape the last time I saw him, so I don't know if he would go, but I would think he would go at least 5 rounds. I would think. You know what I mean? So I think that's a fight to do. This is a guy that it's hard to believe he was going to be in a world championship fight. Now, he got busted for roids, but whatever. They pulled him out. But it's a former, I guess we can't call him a title contender, or he didn't fight in a title match, but still. It's just that you know what it is, Calix? Like, there's not a lot of fighters in between the elites and the not so good. Like there's not a lot there. Mm-hmm. It's like when you step up, you got to step up against Joe Joyce. You know what I mean? There's no where do you go? Who are the middle of the road dudes? Mm-hmm. I guess a Chris Arreola. What do you think of that?
That's a good fight too. You know what I noticed Saturday night too is all these years later, all these decades later, there's still nobody better at recognizing young talent and developing it than Bob. Bob's still that dude. Bob's still the GOAT at that. He'll recognize a young talent, develop it. He's just smart. He's got great matchmakers. He knows how to develop these guys coming up, putting them in the right fights. And he puts them in correct fights early to where he can test them and see where they're at, right? Is this guy worth going forward with?
Right. Yeah, he doesn't get enough credit for that. I mean,
he doesn't. And he's still the GOAT at that. You saw all the young prospects cheering on Big Baby during the fight. Those are all young prospects that we're going to watch the next decade coming up.
He puts fighters in positions especially a lot of fighters build a good legacy based off of what Top Rank put them in. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I've always said this. I think when a fighter starts off, one of the best promotional companies to be with is Top Rank. To start off, to start your career, to jumpstart your career, to get your first or second world title. Top Rank is the way to go. And then either you stay. I think they do have a ceiling though. I do believe that Top Rank has a ceiling. Mm-hmm. So at some point you gotta leave, but You got to leave
More
at
than
the
nothing.
time. Like, don't do what Teofimo Lopez did and like try to leave like when you barely won a belt. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah. Now you got an announcement to make before we wrap this thing up. Hit us with that announcement.
All right, so we're going to be doing, guys, a couple years ago, we used to have a league. It was called the Fantasy Boxing League. We keep hearing about fantasy football and fantasy this, fantasy that. No, we're going to bring back fantasy boxing. These thought, what's fantasy boxing? It's kind of like a pick'em league, but better. Okay. Ain't nobody ever do a league like this. Now we used to do ones with, we had one with over 100 people. We used to have one with 80, 60 people, but we did several seasons. It was mainly run on Twitter. We'll still have Twitter active, of course, for updates, but we're gonna open the floor to people here on YouTube. It's only gonna be 20 people though. Okay, so the first 20 people that want to join the fantasy boxing, let us know, so we could go ahead and get that started. And once we get the 20 people, we'll let you know how it works. Very, very easy. All you do is tell us who's going to win and how they're going to win. And I'll explain how it works. We have divisions, boxing divisions. So we're going to have 4 divisions of 5. Okay. So it's going to be the heavyweight division. All right. The middleweight division, lightweight, or maybe welterweight and lightweight or something like that. I'll figure that out. And we'll go ahead and do that. You know what I mean? So I think you guys will like it. Like I could tell, Nando has no clue what the fuck it is. You know what I mean? And then of course
it gets very competitive. Very competitive.
We have you got to try to win your division first. Once you win your division, we go for pound supremacy, and all that will be explained. You know what I mean? Everything will be explained, and then of course there'll be a winner at the end. Pound for pound fantasy boxing champion. You know what I mean? So it's just like that.
It's a beast, and we're rolling it out, and there'll be bigger and better things to come after that, but we're rolling it out.
You remember the hat trick, right?
Remember the hat trick. I remember my Ricky Burns hat trick that got me in the playoffs that year.
There you go. All right. So that's kind of how it runs. It's kind of like a little bit of fantasy football and a pick'em league in boxing. It's kind of a mix of both. You know what I mean? But it's boxing themed. The regular season, quote unquote, is the divisions, and then you go to pound for pound supremacy, which is basically the playoffs. You know what I mean? And maybe we'll have a contender invitational again. Who knows, right? But Factoid always loves to be on those. He was on those every year. You know what I mean? So, but yeah.
So be paying attention to our channels as we roll out, and we'll be getting people in, and we'll be rolling out the league here pretty soon.
That's right.
So it's gonna be a good thing, because it's something that definitely got super competitive. It grew big time. Back in the day, a lot of things, and we'll be rolling out things after that as well. So appreciate you coming through. Tomorrow we'll be on this channel again, and depending on what happens in my house, if another illness scourges my house, it depends on what happens with that and what time we'll be here. Likely another evening show. So
bro, you gotta get a goat, slit the throat, and just like put the blood on your door, bro. Isn't that the thing to do?
It is, but that doesn't have any jurisdiction at their school.
Okay.
That's why they pick it up.
So, you gotta take the goat to the school, like you gotta.
I know. So we'll be back tomorrow. Appreciate you coming through. And we out. Peace. God bless.